of ID. But for voting, they want no voter ID. It's only for one reason, because they cheat. We would pass that in 15 minutes. If you don't...
From the get-go, he seemed determined to reshape the federal government in ways we've never seen before. Whether it was firing inspectors general, replacing career civil servants with loyalists, or attempting to bypass Congress on budget matters, Trump really cemented himself as someone who views constitutional constraints as mere suggestions. But here's where the rubber meets the road. We're now 3 weeks into what insiders are calling the most serious constitutional standoff since Watergate. Federal funding for multiple agencies has been frozen. Career diplomats are being recalled en masse. Military leaders are openly questioning the chain of command. This mess is unfolding because Trump and Congress are at a complete standoff over his attempt to unilaterally redirect billions in appropriated funds without congressional approval. And guess who's stuck right in the middle? Yep, every single member of Congress who took an oath to defend the Constitution. And before we go any further, let's be real for a second. The situation is complex with legal arguments on multiple sides. But the core issue is straightforward. Can a president simply ignore Congress when it comes to spending taxpayer money? Now back to the matter at hand. Reports from around October 23rd revealed just how furious Trump was with Republican senators who dared question his authority. He labeled Senator Susan Collins' proposed compromise as treasonous backstabbing, and even went as far as to say she was worse than the Democrats. Talk about strong words. Essentially, Trump was calling anyone who didn't fall in line a traitor for not sticking to his exact wishes. And this wasn't a private conversation. Trump made sure to air his grievances publicly on Truth Social, making it clear that he was not happy with any Republican showing independence. This announcement sent shockwaves through the GOP because it raised all sorts of questions. If Trump, the party leader himself, could turn against moderate Republicans, what did that mean for everyone else scrambling to maintain their political futures? Now, this isn't the first time we've seen this. Trump's loyalty really only extends to himself. Whenever someone stops being useful or does something he doesn't like, he's quick to turn on them. We've spotted this pattern time and time again. Just think about how he turned on Jeff Sessions right after Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation. Trump went from calling him a great senator to tweeting daily attacks, ultimately forcing him out of office. Sessions' political career in Alabama, once rock solid, was completely destroyed. Then there was Bill Barr. Trump wasn't pleased when Barr stated there was no evidence of widespread election fraud in 2020. Within days, Trump was calling his former attorney general weak and a disappointment, effectively ending their relationship and Barr's influence in Trump's circles. And let's not forget how he distanced himself from Mike Pence when Pence refused to overturn the election results on January 6th. Trump's supporters literally chanted about hanging his own vice president while Trump remained silent for hours. Even Kevin McCarthy faced a similar fate when he initially criticized Trump after January 6th. Though McCarthy later tried to repair the relationship, Trump never forgot and was notably absent when McCarthy needed support during his speakership battles. Now it looks like moderate Senate Republicans are in the hot seat. Here's where it gets interesting. This pattern is becoming all too familiar. You can show all the loyalty in the world and defend Trump every single day, but the moment you step out of line or cease to be useful, he'll toss you aside without a second thought. So what did these senators do to tick off Trump? Well, it all boils down to the Constitution's separation of powers. The impasse happened because Trump wanted to redirect $47 billion in congressionally approved funds to his border wall and deportation programs, while Congress was trying to maintain their constitutional authority over spending. Ultimately, several agencies just shut down since no one was willing to budge. As the crisis deepened, a group of Republican senators decided to take a measured stance. They supported Trump's policy goals but refused to abandon their constitutional duties. Their approach seemed to be finding a middle ground that would give Trump some of what he wanted, while preserving congressional authority. At first, Trump seemed to be on board with this idea. He appreciates displays of strength and the notion of Republicans standing together. But as the shutdown dragged into its third week, some issues started cropping up. Essential government services ground to a halt, passport offices closed their doors, and Social Security offices stopped processing new claims. while Trump's base remained steadfast and holding their ground. Predictably, the public began to shift their blame toward Republicans overall. Polls indicated that Americans were increasingly frustrated with what they saw as a manufactured crisis. Now, here's the kicker. This was the moment Trump began to sweat a little. You see, Trump values winning, maintaining power, and overall public perception. He doesn't want to be tied to a shutdown that's hurting ordinary Americans. That's definitely not the victory he seeks. And then moderate Republicans went ahead and made a move that, according to Trump, was a serious misstep. Senator Collins started looking for ways to compromise and figured she should work with Democrats on a bipartisan solution. She even considered supporting a continuing resolution that would fund the government while negotiations continued. But then when Trump caught wind of all this, he absolutely lost it. In Trump's eyes, compromising is just a sign of weakness. Working with Democrats, that's pure betrayal. Any Republican who dares to break ranks is instantly labeled a traitor. Let's break this down. This left moderate Republicans in a tight spot. On one side, they really need Trump's backing to survive their primaries. The MAGA base will drop them like a hot potato if Trump gives the signal. On the flip side, they actually have to govern and face voters in general elections. That means figuring out how to keep the government running, maintain essential services, and not look like extremists. The tricky part is all of that requires some level of compromise and bipartisan cooperation. So they're caught in a bind. They can either keep trying to please Trump, which means holding the line no matter what, and that only makes the crisis worse and paints Republicans in a bad light. Or they can do their actual jobs as senators, which means working across the aisle. But that'll definitely make Trump turn against them. It's a tough situation, and that's the mess Trump creates for Republican leaders. He demands complete loyalty and wants them to fight without budging, but then he points fingers when things go south. He's not shy about tossing them under the bus whenever it suits him. This whole scenario is causing major stress within the Republican Party. If Trump has turned on Susan Collins and is willing to publicly undermine his own allies, every GOP senator is left wondering if they're the next target. Those moderates who are trying to balance serving their constituents with party loyalty are now worried sick about being the next one to get tossed aside. Meanwhile, the MAGA wing believes Collins and others aren't fighting hard enough and that they're too open to compromise. Things became even more intense when Mitch McConnell, one of the most strategic Republicans in the Senate, broke away from Trump's position. He had been pushing for a more sustainable solution and criticized Trump for creating an unnecessary crisis. When someone as politically savvy as McConnell starts turning against you, you know you're in a world of hurt. But wait, there's more. The situation took a dramatic legal turn when a federal judge stepped into the fray. On October 26th, Judge Sarah Morrison of the D.C. Circuit filed an emergency ruling stating that Trump's attempt to redirect funds without congressional approval was a flagrant violation of the Constitution's Appropriations Clause. She pointed out that the founders specifically gave Congress the power of the purse to prevent exactly this kind of executive overreach. The legal process moved pretty quickly, and the judge recognized the urgency. After all, every day the crisis continued meant more damage to democratic norms and public services. And let me tell you, the judge didn't hold back with the ruling. It was a major blow for Trump. The judge declared that Trump's actions were constitutionally indefensible and a clear abuse of executive power. That's legal speak for saying you've got no solid ground to stand on here. There's no legal validity to what you're doing. You're just abusing your power. Judge Morrison calling out Trump by name created a real stir. It's a significant move reminding Trump that he isn't above the Constitution. This is a huge deal that doesn't usually happen in functioning democracies. Legal experts are noting that we haven't seen a federal court rebuke a president this strongly since the Nixon era. Jonathan Turley, a conservative constitutional scholar who's not exactly known for opposing Republican presidents, went on Fox News and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that the court's language is unusually harsh because the violation is unusually clear. This isn't a gray area of executive authority. Just think about that for a moment when even conservative legal voices are saying the president clearly violated the Constitution, and this is coming from a regular Fox News contributor. Andrew McCarthy, a former federal prosecutor and National Review columnist, mentioned that if this ruling stands, it essentially tells Trump he cannot govern by decree. The implications for his entire second-term agenda are staggering. When legal experts from both sides start tossing around terms like constitutionally indefensible and clear violation, that's the moment to really pay attention. So let's break down what this showdown could mean, because it's not just a captivating constitutional story. It has serious consequences for how our democracy operates. First up is the immediate political fallout. Trump is already facing significant backlash due to the ongoing crisis, and his approval ratings are taking a hit. According to a YouGov poll from October 27th, 58% of Americans blame Trump for the shutdown, including 23% of Republicans. GOP representatives are getting anxious about the upcoming 2026 midterms, which is definitely adding to the tension. The emergency congressional session being called. And honestly, that's not the best look for him. Most folks in America have a good deal of respect for constitutional limits as a vital part of our system, even if they don't always agree with specific policies. Democrats are definitely planning to take advantage of this situation. They'll argue that Trump believes he's above the Constitution and does not hold the rule of law in high regard, and they'll have a federal judge's ruling backing up those claims. This is going to be Exhibit A in proving that Trump poses a fundamental threat to democracy. You can expect to see Judge Morrison's words popping up in Democratic campaign ads, speeches, and debates. Now let's touch on what this means for our institutions themselves. Chief Justice John Roberts has been working hard to keep the Supreme Court out of political battles, wanting it to be viewed as above partisan influence. But if this case reaches the High Court, they'll be wading right into a political controversy. Trump and his supporters are now poised to attack the entire federal judiciary, implying bias and questioning their motives, which complicates things for the court's image as neutral arbiters. Yet Judge Morrison probably felt she had no other choice. If she stayed silent while Trump violated the Constitution, the judiciary's credibility would take an even bigger hit. This situation shines a massive spotlight on the separation of powers. At the heart of the issue is whether a president can just ignore Congress whenever he feels like it. If Trump gets his way on that, it could totally change how our government operates. The founders designed our system with checks and balances, specifically to prevent any one person from accumulating too much power. Congress controls spending precisely so presidents can't become kings who rule by decree. But Trump has always been uncomfortable with those limitations. He craves total control over everything. If his violations are allowed to stand, that's a significant boost to executive power, and it opens the door for future presidents to misuse that power. So the implications of this case reach far beyond just Trump and Congress. It's about shaping the structure of American democracy for many years to come. Each time Trump brushes aside norms, breaks laws, or attacks institutions, it weakens our democratic systems. It starts making behavior that used to be completely unacceptable feel normal. Think about it. If Trump can redirect billions without congressional approval, what's to stop the next president from doing the same? If he can just ignore court rulings whenever he wants, what's to prevent another president from following that lead? These actions don't just disappear when Trump leaves office. They become part of our new reality, and that's pretty dangerous. Democracy relies on those norms and institutions, assuming that people in power will play by the rules, even when it's a bit inconvenient. When those norms crumble, democracy itself starts to falter. Looking ahead to the 2026 midterms, it's clear that all of this is going to have some significant effects. We're still over a year out from those elections, but the narrative being set now is bound to influence how things go. If the story playing out is one of Trump battling every institution and coming out on the losing side, that spells trouble for Republicans. Voters usually don't reward chaos and dysfunction. They want stability and competence. Right now, Trump isn't offering either of those. So expect Democrats to champion a message focused on restoring constitutional governance. After years of chaos under Trump, there are folks who believe that if you vote for them, Congress will actually start working again. They're promising no more constant constitutional crises or battles with federal judges, just good old normal governance. That message might just hit home for a lot of voters, including some moderate Republicans. And here's where Warren Buffett enters the picture. His statement today wasn't just about politics. He specifically warned that continued constitutional instability poses a greater threat to American markets than any economic indicator. For someone who's weathered every crisis from the 1987 crash to the 2008 financial meltdown, that's an extraordinary statement. When Buffett speaks, institutional investors listen. And his words today suggest that even Wall Street is starting to worry that Trump's norm-breaking could fundamentally damage American stability. So here's the deal. An emergency session of Congress has been called to address whether Trump should face immediate removal for violating his constitutional oath. This isn't just about a government shutdown or a budget dispute. It's about whether the President of the United States can simply ignore the Constitution when it's inconvenient. If Trump gets away with this, then we're basically saying constitutional limits don't matter anymore. That would mean we're stepping into a completely new realm where presidential power has no meaningful constraints. It's about so much more than just this immediate crisis. It's about whether we genuinely have a system of checks and balances, or if we're just stuck with whoever can grab the most power. So keep an eye on this. Things are just heating up. With Congress convening an emergency session and even Warren Buffett sounding alarms, we're entering uncharted territory. The next few weeks are going to be crucial. Will Republicans finally find the courage to stand up to Trump? Will the court's ruling hold? Can our democratic institutions survive this assault? The stakes have never been higher, the evidence stronger, and the outcome more unpredictable. Il caso prende una svolta legale drammatica con l'intervento del giudice federale Sarah Morrison, che il 26 ottobre emette un provvedimento d'emergenza contro le azioni di Trump. La sentenza dichiara chiaramente che il reindirizzamento dei fondi senza l'approvazione del Congresso costituisce un abuso di potere e una violazione della Costituzione. Il giudice sottolinea come i padri fondatori abbiano attribuito al Congresso il controllo della power of the purse proprio per evitare l'accentramento di potere nelle mani dell'esecutivo. L'urgenza della crisi spinge la Corte ad agire rapidamente, riconoscendo che ogni giorno di stallo aggiunge danno ai servizi pubblici e indebolisce le norme democratiche. Questa reprimenda giudiziaria rappresenta un colpo significativo per Trump. Le parole del giudice non lasciano margini di interpretazione. Le azioni presidenziali sono incostituzionali e prive di fondamento legale. Non si tratta di una semplice disputa politica, ma di un chiaro richiamo alla supremazia della legge sulla volontà individuale. L'intervento giudiziario crea un precedente importante. Nemmeno il Presidente può considerarsi al di sopra della Costituzione e qualsiasi tentativo di bypassare il Congresso sarà attentamente scrutinato dalle Corti. L'impatto mediatico della sentenza è immediato. Le parole di Morrison vengono ampiamente riportate dai media, trasformandosi in uno strumento potente per l'opposizione democratica. Gli avversari di Trump possono ora puntare a dimostrare che il Presidente ignora le regole costituzionali, mettendo in evidenza il rischio che comporta per la stabilità democratica. La gravità della reprimenda è sottolineata anche da esperti legali conservatori come Jonathan Turley, che sottolinea come il linguaggio della Corte sia eccezionalmente severo, proprio perché la violazione è evidente. Non si tratta di una zona grigia del potere esecutivo. Anche voci conservatrici riconoscono che Trump ha oltrepassato i limiti costituzionali. Allo stesso modo, Andrew McCarthy, ex procuratore federale, afferma che se la sentenza dovesse essere confermata, essa imporrebbe al Presidente il vincolo di non governare per decreto, limitando gravemente la sua capacità di agire unilateralmente su questioni finanziarie e politiche. L'eco di queste dichiarazioni amplifica la pressione politica su Trump e sui suoi alleati, creando un contesto di tensione senza precedenti. Il coinvolgimento della magistratura mette inoltre in luce la fragilità delle istituzioni quando vengono messe sotto stress da azioni presidenziali aggressive. La separazione dei poteri pilastro della democrazia americana è testata nel profondo. Ogni giorno di stallo aumenta il rischio di danni permanenti alle norme costituzionali e la sentenza di Morrison diventa simbolo della necessità di controlli e contrappesi. I repubblicani moderati, inizialmente esitanti a opporsi apertamente al presidente, ottengono ora un sostegno tangibile dalla legge che giustifica le loro scelte di mediazione e compromesso. Le conseguenze politiche ed economiche della crisi si manifestano immediatamente. Sul piano politico il presidente Trump affronta un calo di approvazione significativo secondo un sondaggio YouGov del 27 ottobre. Il 58% degli americani ritiene Trump responsabile del blocco dei servizi governativi, inclusi il 23% dei repubblicani. Questo scenario aumenta la pressione sui legislatori del GOP in vista delle elezioni di midterm del 2026, costringendoli a valutare ogni passo con estrema attenzione. La percezione pubblica si sposta alla crisi non è più vista come un conflitto interno al partito, ma come un danno alla funzionalità stessa del governo federale, creando una narrativa favorevole ai democratici, che puntano a ristabilire l'equilibrio costituzionale. Sul fronte economico, l'instabilità costituzionale solleva preoccupazioni anche tra investitori e grandi operatori di mercato. Warren Buffett, figura di riferimento globale per la finanza, lancia un allarme chiaro. La continua violazione delle norme costituzionali rappresenta un rischio maggiore per i mercati americani di qualsiasi indicatore economico tradizionale. Le sue parole sottolineano come l'incertezza politica possa tradursi rapidamente in instabilità finanziaria, con ripercussioni sul credito, sugli investimenti e sulla fiducia globale nella stabilità degli Stati Uniti. Il messaggio di Buffett amplifica la gravità della situazione, segnalando che la crisi non riguarda solo il funzionamento interno del governo, ma ha anche effetti tangibili sul sistema economico mondiale. La chiamata di una sessione straordinaria del Congresso amplifica ulteriormente la tensione. Legislatori e analisti discutono se Trump debba affrontare una rimozione immediata per violazione del suo giuramento costituzionale. L'emergenza non è un semplice conflitto su budget o shutdown, è una sfida diretta ai limiti imposti dal sistema di checks and balances. Se Trump riuscisse a superare questa crisi senza conseguenze legali o politiche, si creerebbe un precedente pericoloso. Il potere presidenziale diventerebbe virtualmente incontrollato, minando uno dei fondamenti della democrazia americana. La posta in gioco è quindi altissima, non solo per Trump e per il GOP, ma per la credibilità delle istituzioni e la fiducia dei cittadini nel sistema politico. All'interno del partito la divisione tra moderati e la fazione più radicale del MAGA si accentua. I primi cercano compromessi per garantire la continuità dei servizi e proteggere la stabilità istituzionale. I secondi fedeli incondizionati a Trump vedono ogni concessione come un segno di debolezza. Questo scontro interno aumenta lo stress politico e genera incertezza sulle strategie future del GOP, influenzando la possibilità di una leadership coerente e stabile. La pressione mediatica contribuisce a rendere la crisi un tema centrale nel dibattito pubblico, attirando attenzione internazionale e sottolineando come la governance americana stia vivendo un momento di tensione senza precedenti. L'attenzione ora si concentra sul futuro della democrazia americana e sulla tenuta delle istituzioni. La crisi innescata dalle azioni di Trump non riguarda più esclusivamente il presidente o il Congresso. Essa mette alla prova la capacità dell'intero sistema politico di mantenere l'equilibrio tra potere esecutivo, legislativo e giudiziario. Se le violazioni costituzionali dovessero rimanere impunite, si aprirebbe un precedente pericoloso, consentendo a futuri presidenti di ignorare deliberatamente i limiti del loro mandato e di governare per decreto. Questo scenario minaccia la stabilità normativa su cui si fonda la democrazia americana e la fiducia dei cittadini nelle istituzioni. L'emergenza costituzionale attuale evidenzia come le norme e i controlli progettati dai padri fondatori siano fondamentali per evitare l'accentramento del potere. La separazione dei poteri non è un concetto astratto. Essa serve a proteggere i cittadini, garantire la correttezza delle decisioni governative e prevenire abusi. Il conflitto tra Trump e il Congresso, insieme all'intervento giudiziario della Corte federale, sottolinea l'importanza di rispettare questi principi. Il ruolo della magistratura si rivela cruciale per ristabilire il rispetto della legge e per dimostrare che nessun leader politico può considerarsi al di sopra della Costituzione. Parallelamente, le elezioni di midterm del 2026 diventano un banco di prova fondamentale. Gli elettori valutano la gestione della crisi e la capacità dei legislatori di garantire il funzionamento dello Stato. I repubblicani moderati devono bilanciare le esigenze della base MAGA con il bisogno di preservare la credibilità e la funzionalità del governo. Ogni decisione, ogni compromesso o rifiuto di obbedire alle pressioni presidenziali avrà conseguenze dirette sul loro futuro politico e sul posizionamento del partito nel panorama nazionale. L'intera strategia elettorale del GOP è ora messa sotto stress e la capacità di navigare questa situazione determinerà chi potrà emergere come leader credibile nel prossimo ciclo politico. Il settore economico osserva con attenzione. Warren Buffett ha lanciato un chiaro avvertimento. La persistenza di instabilità costituzionale e crisi politiche può danneggiare i mercati americani più di qualsiasi altro indicatore economico. La preoccupazione degli investitori e delle istituzioni finanziarie internazionali è concreta. La percezione di un governo instabile riduce la fiducia, rallenta gli investimenti e può influenzare negativamente la valuta e le operazioni finanziarie globali. Questo mette in luce come la politica interna e la stabilità istituzionale siano indissolubilmente legate alla salute economica del Paese. Infine, l'emergenza sessione del Congresso e la possibilità di una rimozione immediata del Presidente rappresentano un test cruciale per l'America. Non si tratta solo di decidere il destino politico di Trump, ma di stabilire se la Costituzione e i principi democratici continueranno a essere vincolanti per chiunque detenga la carica presidenziale. La posta in gioco è enorme, la tenuta delle istituzioni, la credibilità del sistema giudiziario e la fiducia dei cittadini nel governo stesso. Il mondo osserva e le prossime settimane definiranno se gli Stati Uniti riusciranno a preservare i valori fondamentali su cui sono stati fondati o se si aprirà un nuovo capitolo in cui il potere presidenziale può agire senza vincoli.